Now, many critics wonder if the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will be together forever. And the cracks could be starting to show for the runaway royals. The sources reveal that they have executed a, quote, professional separation after being dropped by Spotify and seeing their joint Netflix deal fall flat on its face. It's been reported that Harry and Meghan will change tactics. So a royal source told the Daily Mail they'll still carry out some charitable engagements together and embark on foreign visits, but their work projects will now be separate. Well, I'm joined by the royal journalist, Sarah-Louise Robertson. Sarah, thank you very much. So what do we make of this professional separation then?
I'm fascinated by this, Patrick, I have to say, and I've been predicting this for quite a while, ever since we saw these tours that they've been going on. And we've seen what's happened as well with these reports that have happened in the Hollywood Reporter, which is really seen as the Hollywood Bible. I mean, this is something that's read by industry bigwigs. And Meghan's been labelled names such as a dictator in high heels, and the Daily Beast has come out and called her sometimes that she would have attacks like a demon. I mean, this is incredible inflammatory language to use against Meghan Markle. But it just points now that all bets are off in terms of, Hollywood gunning for them. And I don't think they could have had a worse PR week than they could possibly have had this last week. So what they've done now is they've decided to have these separate interests. Harry's on this 8-day solo tour in New York, which is going to culminate over here in the UK. But as far as I'm concerned, 8 days away from Meghan Markle's grasp or clasp, whatever you want to call it, that to me is the signal. It's just a hop, skip and a jump to Splitsville, as far as I'm concerned. I think the writing's on the wall. He hasn't looked happy for a while. Despite contrary to reports, he didn't look very happy when he was on that supposed tour in Colombia. And people have said, actually, he looked a bit happier when he was in New York. He was a bit more, how is it someone put it? Human, that was it. We saw more of a human, he was humanized on this New York trip. So actually, this New York trip's been a bit more beneficial for Harry, because he hasn't had the worries. We've not heard him have a go at the press or go on about security following him. You know, that last trip to New York where they claimed that they were being hounded by paparazzi. We've heard none of this time.
The Fast and the Spurious. Yeah, the Fast and the Spurious, it turned out, because many people thought that it didn't actually exist, that kind of low-speed car chase that they said out. Now, I will just say this. Look, I've obviously dished it out a fair bit to Harry and Meghan, as many people have over the course of the last few years. I really do hope that they stay together. I'm a big believer in marriage. I've recently got married myself. There's also kids involved with them, and I would hate to see, anything go on there. But they are also, as well as a couple, a brand. They tried to make themselves a brand. Now, if they realise...
They failed, Patrick.
This is it. If they realise that they've failed as a brand and they start opting to operate professionally in a separate capacity, then I suppose that is going to have an impact on their personal relationship, isn't it?
Well, of course it is, because remember Meghan made that famous silly comment where she says, we're like salt and pepper, we move together. I mean, whatever that meant. But anyway, she came out with that, and then now we've seen that they're actually working together has done them no good whatsoever. They've had a disastrous time in Hollywood. Everything they've touched has just gone wrong. They were dropped by Spotify. They're coming to the end of their contract with Netflix. That's set to run out next year. And I've been told that at the moment there's no plans for it to be renewed. The Heart of the Invictus documentary that Harry did, that sank without trace. It failed to sort of set alight with viewers. She's brought out this thing, American Riviera Orchard, where she sent a few jars of jam to some famous friends. Again, nothing's really come of that. And so together, it's just not looking good for them. So I think now, as a way to try and salvage their own reputations, they've decided, OK, let's just try and see if we can do something solo. Meghan probably in her head thinks that, Harry's complaints against the media and against his family, I think now she sort of wants to distance herself from that and align herself with powerful people in Hollywood. Harry is I think, missing royal life in a way, even though he claimed to want to run away from it. He's missing the status that being a working royal gave him. We've seen he's talked about service, how he still wants to play a part in his humanitarian causes. And that's what he set out to do. But I think what's really fascinating this week as well, which I can't get over, she hired this massive agent, this Hollywood power broker, Ari Emanuel. How did he fail to stop this Hollywood Reporter piece from going out? I mean, that in itself, Patrick, speaks volumes, doesn't it? But Meghan herself, she seems like she's wanted to align herself with the likes of Oprah, these Hollywood types, she obviously sees that's where her power base is. That's what she's trying to build there. Because the thing with Meghan is her eyes are on a political career. It always has been the case of her that her eyes are on a political career.
It's interesting, isn't it, on that? Because I think just to say on that, because I think you made a really good point, which is that if Harry is looking to return to royal life or be in that orbit, well, he said that Meghan isn't going to come back to Britain. I think we all know that. If you also add into the mix exactly what you've just said there, which is if Meghan does have political ambitions in the US, then Harry might not want to be, overtly political. We know that he's kind of ventured into that zone before. We might not want to be overtly political. So it would make sense for them to go their separate ways, professionally speaking, to both line up those next offshoots, wouldn't it? And the only issue for Meghan is, potentially, that we've just seen a load of stuff here, as you were alluding to there, about people saying she's a dictator in high heels, she's fuming and barking orders, she's broadly belittled staff. So she will need to do a PR revolution job on herself if she's going to get anywhere, won't she?
Massive. I mean, I pity the person who has to do that for her. They've tried already this week. They've released this report in Us Weekly, which is one of their favoured magazines. The editor of that, Dan Wakeford, he used to be the editor-in-chief of People magazine, which is another one of Meghan's magazines of choice. It's interesting. He's took upon himself to get these so-called members of staff who have come out and tried to say what a wonderful boss she is. They've come out named, as opposed to the unnamed sources that were in the Hollywood Reporter and the Daily Beast article. So that's the start of the PR offensive, the move to sort of try and clear her name. But there's a long way to go yet, Patrick. I mean, those revelations are damaging, and we still have never seen the results of the royal family inquiry into the alleged bullying that took place when she was a working royal.
I wonder if we ever will. So,
no, we won't.
Thank you very, very much. Absolute delight to see you again. Take care, Sarah-Louise Robertson there. Right. Labour appears to be economically illiterate. Do you remember in June when Keir Starmer said he had a plan to make you richer? Now, a big part of that plan was clamping down on non-doms.
We want to bear down properly on the non-dom tax status.
We've committed £100 million to the emergency dentist appointments, which will be paid for by closing tax avoidance and also closing the tax loopholes that are currently left there by the Conservatives in their non-doms arrangements.
Labour have committed to getting rid of the non-dom tax status because if you make Britain your home, you should pay your taxes here.
In fact, in that Metro article, Keir Starmer said, "We will end tax breaks for very wealthy non-doms to deliver free breakfast clubs in primary schools, which we have found would save parents £400 a year by cutting expenses on paid-for breakfast clubs or alternative childcare arrangements." Now, non-doms were going to fund the NHS, they were going to fund schools, they were going to fund pretty much everything. Rachel Reeves even stood up in Parliament and said that Labour was the party now, wasn't it, of economic literacy. In fact, she actually said this.
It is clear that today, Labour is the party of economic and fiscal responsibility.
Well, today it's emerged that this is, frankly, a load of rubbish, because the government spending watchdog is expected to reveal that Keir Starmer's promised tax crackdown on non-doms could raise nothing. Not a penny. In fact, it might end up costing us. Labour later predicted that implementing its changes could raise an annual £1 billion in the first year, which will be put towards funding universal school breakfast clubs and more hospital and dental appointments. But now that means there's a £1 billion black hole, doesn't it? All of their own making, of course. If only they could have seen this coming, that the world's wealthiest and most mobile people might simply leave Britain if the socialists come to kick their door down and demand their money. Of course, the other kicker here is that if they leave entirely, then they pay no tax at all, which means what exactly? Who's going to pay for Wes Streeting's 40,000 extra NHS appointments a week? And just 2 days ago, Rachel Reeves already spent the non-dom money on breakfast clubs. So who's going to pay for all of this? Maybe the millionaires will cover the costs. Oh, no. Wait, a record number of millionaires are set to leave Britain this year as well to escape the Red Terror. But that's all right. because people who write for The Guardian don't care. Britain's millionaires are fleeing. Good night and good luck, that chap said. Well, if the non-doms won't pay for stuff and millionaires won't pay for stuff, then it's us, isn't it? We're stuck with the bill. Shall we just have another little look, shall we, at that article that Keir Starmer wrote where he said that he had a plan to make us all richer. Yeah, he said, oh, make it all richer. Well, actually, really, what he should have done was just cross that out and write the word poorer in there. We fixed it for him. There we go. Just as a final thought, Keir Starmer is now so desperate that he's claiming responsibility for things that have nothing to do with him. He says, we've secured investment to create one of the largest AI data centres in Europe. Slight problem, this deal was agreed in April under the Conservatives. Buckle up, everyone. The Labour taxman is coming knocking.